Hey, everybody, welcome to Tattooed in Business. I'm your host, Brian Merrill, and this is Life in Business Through the Eyes of a Gen X male who happens to be in corporate sales for over 20 years now. So, these are different things I've learned in my life over the long journey I've had, both in that pertain to business and my life. So, with summertime comes a lot of different things going on community wise. Sponsorship level for golf tournaments, softball tournaments, all sorts of different charity events because of the weather being nicer. That happens in the winter, of course, but it seems to be more prevalent in the summertime. So, as a newer business, a lot of times you wonder like where do I dole out my sponsorship to? Because there's big common misconceptions. Everyone thinks that you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you must be loaded, you must have all this extra money, or it's just a write off, man. Don't worry about it. It's just you can write it off on your taxes. Well, it's not an endless pool of money. It's not an endless stream out there. So you really you have to if you haven't made a budget for this, you really need to take a look at your business plan and make sure you do have a budget there. Now, if you've been in business for a few years or whatnot, you obviously have a threshold that you feel comfortable. And there's, some people will use a formula and say 10% of your earnings is what you should get back, or some people use, higher numbers and depends on where your comfort level is and the size of business you are and what type of business you're in. Um, and sometimes you're just not in a position where you can do that. If you have partners, you got to clear that with your partners and everything. And it's one of those things. Hold on, I'm just going to adjust a little bit here. It's one of those things that you know there's no right or wrong answer to a lot of this, but you do want to be careful what you do. And I've had to learn the hard way. I've been doing the same thing for about 5 years now, branded apparel and promotional products. Most people in my community know what I do for a living. If they don't, you know, they probably haven't paid attention much. And, you know, I talked about this before. I don't get asked very often to do anything paid in my backyard. Nobody says, "Hey, Brian, we have this event. We're selling T-shirts. Can you give us a price on T-shirts?" I don't usually get that. I get, "Brian, you want to give us something?" and and that's fine. I don't mind that to a certain extent. But then when I find out there's a paid opportunity, and then you go to a competitor, then I'm not going to get back to that as much. You know, so you really got to watch what you put your logo, your sponsorship, and everything behind, and you want to make sure you are aligning yourself with something that does represent your personality, your brand, and your values. And that's where it really comes into play. And then as far as the money situation, obviously never commit to something that you're not willing to do or give. And if you commit to a number or a price or something of that nature, you got to follow through with it. That's a great way to get yourself blacklisted and get yourself in a lot of trouble. And especially if you're doing with like a non-for-profit organization, and you say you're going to do, I'm just going to make up a number here, like $3,000 sponsorship, and they're banking on that, they're budgeting that, and then you pull out. Okay, that's like a big no-no. You're going to get blackballed really quick, really fast. So there's nothing wrong with doing the smaller sponsorships first for the first few years, and then growing into other avenues as a title or as whatnot as time comes. And then if you really take a look at where your money comes from and where your marketing is, networking, maybe what's pulling in the best revenue source for you, and that's where you want to align your major stuff. Okay. Now, I still am a firm believer that you need to remember where you came from, and maybe like the town stuff that we do doesn't generate revenue for Brian Merrill, and maybe that's okay because I feel this is what molded me or was important to my family growing up. So I'll give back to something like that. There's one thing that every year I always wish that I'm in a better situation than I'm in so that I could do 100% of the sponsorship, right? So that I can sponsor a certain thing. And it's not even an event. It's a remembrance thing. And every year I just sit there when I get approached about it. I sit there and I get I get down on myself because I'm sitting there going, God, I just want to be able to the one time just eat the entire cost, and just because of the person that it's in the name of, just someone who I really liked, really knew and liked, and had, it was an unfortunate accident. But there's other things like I'm very big on veteran affairs. I'm very big on veteran suicide, especially, and suicide awareness in general. But there's other things out there. Like there's so many other things. Like people don't realize the amount of depression that people deal with, and everybody think, and it's not a gender thing. And that's what I always bring up Lori Seitz and her podcast. If you can watch her podcast, I mean, or listen to her podcast, fine is a 4-letter word. She's brilliant. And it's a human thing, and she always says, I'm like, it's a human thing, and she's right. But like we all go through these times where we have all these things going on, and you think life is great, right? And everyone thinks life is great, and meanwhile she says, there's a big fire behind you. That's what it's about for her. But like her podcast and everything. But that's something that I'd like to make sure that I try to get involved with and get back. I've always had this dream of mine, and I'll pull it off someday here, is feeding homeless veterans or people. For some reason, Thanksgiving has always stood out in my head as a time that we it's I like Thanksgiving because I say it's just about being with people. There's no other agenda. It's about being with people. I understand what it's for and everything, but at the end of the day, it's about being with people. And there's so many people that go without having family to spend it with. And I took for granted the family I had spending it with a couple years. And unfortunately, I'll never get back the opportunity to go to my Uncle Danny's ever again, because he, tragically passed away. And he was like a brother to me. So certain things like that, I've always said, yeah, I want to be able to get back to. But you get bombarded, right? So you get asked to sponsor 10 different golf sponsorships. So the big thing is political. And I'll never forget this. If anyone hasn't watched the series Last Dance, about the Chicago Bulls' last run at a title, it's not just in that, it's in Michael Jordan's story anyhow. But there's a time where he was asked to back a politician, and he refused to back him, like just throw a support in North Carolina, and he got all sorts of criticism from it. And he said, well, Democrats and Republicans both buy sneakers. And so he took that philosophy, and I applaud the guy for that, because he understood to not take a political stance. Political stances are very tough, right? Because we all want to pledge to somebody. Well, and also, party lines. I don't like to play that game, but there are people that I feel I want to support and whatnot. And let's face it, you do need to make sure that you are in business somehow connected to certain people, that you can pick up the phone and make a call and help expedite something and move things along quicker. And that's very important. So like, I hate to say the game is always like who right? But it really does boil down to that. And when you're looking at sponsorships and you're looking at how what to throw your money towards, I hate saying it, but you got to consider that. You got to consider that who are the people that are going to help benefit you in your career. And it's powerful. So I tell everyone, try to take 3 things, right? Take that hometown thing that you love, that that you can get behind, whether it's an alumni tournament, it's a festival, something that's from where you came from, where your roots are. And if that opportunity comes about, see if you can participate that way. So there's one. The second one is something that aligns your business in the right frame, network, group of like-minded people that you can collaborate with and help each other grow. It'll grow you. You can help other people grow, those type of events. So it could be Habitat for Humanity, Big Brother, Big Sister. It could be something that you have other people on a board member that you are like-minded and look for, and that'll, that you can align yourself with. And then the third one I say, and I hate saying this, but try to take some type of a social stance. I don't want to say political stance, but a social stance. So it could be the Humane Society. It could be Like I said, Habitat for Humanity. It could be something that's a social event, a socially driven thing that, yes, politics are going to get involved in at some point, but you feel comfortable that it's going to represent your name and your brand. Like it could be your senators race. You could be your local, governor or something of that nature, but you want to at least, I'd say, try to find three things. I've always pledged this. I had a opportunity when I was in advertising sales to work with the Children's Miracle Network, and opened my eyes to a lot of things. Because before that, did a lot of things with. I don't want to say the name of it because I'm about to say something about them that people probably don't know. But another organization that is very popular in the country community, I'll just say, and you need to research and see where the money goes and how it's allocated, how it's spent. Your local stuff, you usually don't have to worry about that. Support your local fire station, man. You got a volunteer fire station and you can help them in some way, shape, or form. Donate. These 90% of these guys are not crooks. I know you ever hear in the news every now and then somebody, but they're not. Your ambulance squads, all this type of stuff. I'm a guy who's had the ambulance call them and didn't have any money to pay for it. Well, these guys have to replenish their supplies, stuff like that. So if you can get back that way, that's a great one. But like, there's this one that's a big national one. And when I was working with Children's Miracle Network, they never badmouthed this place. And I started asking questions. And the Children's Miracle Network, that money goes to buy a direct piece of equipment. It goes to buy something direct for the hospitals that they need. Where this other group, literally this money goes not just for research. The research that they're talking about is to fund the doctor's salary. And I think that's bullshit. That's just my personal opinion. It is totally legit. It is not something that's being taken advantage of, but that's where the money goes, is to fund somebody's salary. Not like and I'll say it because I know this isn't one, just in case anyone thinks, like the Ronald McDonald House. That money doesn't fund people's salaries, right? That's not what the money's for. There's so many groups out there. I'm big on the children's groups, and like I said, the suicide thing is huge for me. I think there's way too many people that go through the depression and didn't have the tools and the support that I had to overcome mine. And like I said, if it wasn't for someone who I always call friend, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here today. I mean, physically, he made it so that I was. And, not everyone has that support group. And especially like when you got kids and you're like a parent, right? We're strong. We're superheroes to them. We're not expected to be weak, but that's the person who needs that help the most. And it could be something as counseling, simply donating hours or money or something towards someone to use counseling for counselor hours, things of that nature. But find at least, I'd say if you can afford it, you try to find three things that you can give back to. And maybe it's not money you can give back to. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's time that you give back and you help out. And I've been thinking about this a lot this weekend because, I feel very blessed and very fortunate in my life. I've come across, for as many bad people in this world, so to say, I've come across equally, if not greater, positive people in my life. And I joined a mastermind group, Sean Michael Crane. I've talked to him before. This guy was in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And the philosophy, just like I said, the one thing that's always sticks in my mind is I get to. I don't ever have to do shit. I get to do things every day. You know what? I don't have to get up out of bed. I get to get up every day at 5 a.m. and I get to go to the gym. I get to do these things. And it's funny is I was talking to somebody, I was complaining about my late ex-wife, how she used to, some of the things she used to beat me down on. And one thing she used to beat me down, she said, "Oh, it must be nice to be able to go to the gym and do this." And I'd sit there and I'd say, "Yeah, I get to do that." Why I get to do that? Because I had a heart attack. And when you have a heart attack and the result of not changing your diet, changing your lifestyle and all that is another heart attack. So yes, I get to do that because I didn't die. I get to live. I get to experience these things. I get to have my family. I get to have all these things. And that's because of having a support system. So I know not a lot of people comment to me on this, but I am out in the I still live out in the Harpersville area. So I guess I'm going to reach out and say this to anybody, and you can direct message me or whatever. I'm thinking about putting together or seeing if there's any interest in a community support group for people who just need to talk to somebody, adults especially, in like an anonymous meeting night type stuff. I know my age group, especially in our area, um, we all just had a bunch of pretty tragic losses for people that went way too soon. And grief doesn't discriminate against anything. So that's one of the things I'm interested in, is seeing if there are other people out there who feel the need to um, they feel like they're depressed and they need to talk about things and get it out. I by no means am I a counselor, or no means am I a coach, but I'm a hell of a listener and I'm a good supporter. And I guess that sometimes that's what you need in general. But looking for support system. So it's all about giving back, no matter what it is, whether it's financially, spiritually, emotionally. It's all about giving back. So where you can give back the most, find something that's near and dear to your heart in your local community, something that can advance your career. And then, of course, you want to take a social stance someplace. And keep this in mind, guys. You don't have to throw your name out there. This can be completely anonymous. I do things anonymously all the time, or I'll put them underneath somebody else's name, because, not everybody needs to be recognized. There's a post a few years ago, or excuse me, I think it was 2 Christmases ago. Guy that I have followed him, and I do admire him, Mark Yanti. I just, there's something about him. I'm very drawn to him. And somebody was posting these videos and TikTok and crap about them doing all this great in their community, giving all this money away or presents and all this. Mark is one of the biggest philanthropists in our area and donates a ton, and you never know it. And he never posts anything bragging or anything like that. He's a very smart businessman. And it was like one and only time I seen him make a comment about was really simple, that, real charities and real goodwill doesn't need to be filmed and exploited. And it wasn't those words that he said, but it was something along those lines. And I really applauded the hell out of him for doing that. But like I said, he's one of those guys that nobody ever knows how much he does. Another one is Adam Weitzman. Nobody realized how much money he donates to charities. Whatnot. And I can go on and on and on. There's so many guys out there and people out there and women out there that do this. Women's groups. One of the things that was a shocker to me is women business owners tend to be more supportive financially towards women's things than they are as far as mentoring. And I really believe a mentoring program sometimes goes farther, but men in general would rather mentor versus give money, I guess. And that could be just to this community or whatever that I noticed. This is something I picked up on the last few months. But it's just something, an observation I made. So on that note, these are kind of just a couple tips for trying to know where to get back to, what to donate to, how to get your name in the right light. But at the end of the day, you do want to pick something things that you are truly care about and passionate about. Don't always go for the ones that with the big lights and the big glitter and all this, so that you can be seen. Like I always joke around on the Dick's Open, on the night of the concert, there's all these people, they don't watch golf. They don't give two craps about golf. They don't care about any of the charity stuff. They go to be seen because they want to be seen there. And it's like, grow up. It's like grow up. It's just totally, it's not what it's about. You're robbing from somebody who really gives a crap or really wants to be there and cares and supports the event. So don't be fake. Be real with what you do and do your best to give back where you can. All right, everyone. Have a great week. This is Brian Merrill from Tattooed in Business, and I am out.